In this video, I'm going to show you how to interface a Beyerdynamic DT-290 headset with the popular ICOM 7300 HF transceiver. For my foray into HF, I wanted a clutter-free station. I've seen other headset solutions on the market, but either the cables were too long or there were bulky adapters involved, or both. I also wanted the freedom to select my own headset. So I thought I would try the Beyerdynamic DT-290. Amateur radio is a great hobby for someone with an electronics and a pro audio background. According to my research, the 7300 puts out about 8 volts DC on the microphone input to power condenser microphones. In the pro audio industry, this is called phantom power. And the DT-290 is available in a couple of variations. Some have a dynamic microphone, which does not use phantom power and might require that I filter that out to avoid damaging the microphone. I didn't really want this to be a complicated project, and I did notice that there's a version that is a condenser. Although the specs state it needs 12 to 48 volts, I was concerned that the 8 volts from the 7300 would not be sufficient, but I discovered that the microphone works fine on 8 volts. So you want to get the version of the DT-291 with 80 ohm impedance, headphone impedance. While the 7300 specs state that the audio output is looking for an 8 to 16 ohm load, in pro audio we know it's more about overloading the amplifier with a low impedance load, such as speakers in parallel, than with a higher impedance load, such as speakers in series. I think the slightly higher impedance of these headphones will be fine with the 7300. The DT-290 does not come with cables. You need to get the appropriate cable for your application separately. I bought the headset and a cable with free ends for this project, as well as the XLR TRS cable, so I could also use this headset for pro audio purposes. I got all of that from Full Compass. It also looks like they make a cable for connecting to computer sound cards, which is interesting. So in the back of the 7300 user manual is a pinout of the microphone connector. All we need are pins 1, 7, and 8. Since the headset has a balanced microphone, if you look at this, this is from that pinout we saw on the previous page. It gives the pinouts of each of these cables. But the microphone in the headset is balanced, and a quick and dirty way to convert that to unbalanced is just to short the mic -2 shield. And since the audio output is a mono audio signal, we go ahead and we tie the right and left plus together, connect that to pin 8. That's the audio output. I was able to get the connectors from DX Engineering that go in this connector on the front of the 7300. What was interesting is that they're made by Radio Shack. So don't we wish Radio Shack was still around, and don't we wish they had sold more ham radio equipment. So I suggest breadboarding this, testing it out first to make sure you got the wiring right. So this was actually plugged into the radio at one point and worked fine, and then I went ahead and soldered it up. Looked like that, and this is the finished product. Now I did put a little heat shrink tubing in here for additional strain relief and for color-coded identification. I may have other cable kits or interfaces I want to plug into the 7300 later. I just didn't want to get confused as to which cable end was which device. When I was working with this connector, I noticed that some of the pins in here, and these pins have these little tabs that lift up, and they weren't lifted up that much, so the pins were actually falling out the front of the connector. I just stuck a micro screwdriver in there and pushed them up even further, and that fixed the problem. So the only remaining issue was disabling the 7300's internal speaker. And when I looked at the schematic, I found that the external speaker jack, it's got a normaling behavior going on here. So it looked like if you plugged in an unwired connector, it would just disable the speaker. So in the external speaker jack is the bottom right corner of the rear panel. And yeah, I found out when I just plugged an unwired plug in there, and it shut off the speaker, but the audio was still coming out the headset just fine with the volume controlled by the front panel AF control. Another thing I thought was interesting when I was looking at the 7300's manual is that same connector can also be used with a resistor network to do channel up down and control 4 memories, including voice memories, and you can even hold it down just like you can on the voice screen to do a repeat, auto repeat transmit, when you're calling CQ. So I might make a little box that goes between the 7300 and this headset that adds push to talk, channel up down, access to those 4 memories. I think that might be something for another project. Anyways, let me just go back to the wiring diagram because that's probably what you really need to see. Whoops, sorry. So again, it's the blue and brown and yellow and shield are wired together to pin 7. Red and orange are wired together to pin 8. And then green goes to pin 1.